It is Tuesday, the 7th of May, 2024. I'm Pigeon Rose, and this is my song of the day. Hello and welcome back to Pigeon's Song of the Day, my daily podcast where I talk about a different song every day. There's certain artists that are iconic and everyone knows a bunch of songs by them, and it can be hard to approach them in terms of where do you start, you know? I want to talk about a few Beatles songs on here. I don't know which ones I'm going to fucking start with. It's the Beatles. Similarly, today I want to talk about David Bowie. David Bowie has always just been kind of someone I've listened to, although I didn't get into him until the latter years of his life, really. And then I got more into him after he died, which is pretty standard thing that happens with celebrities, unfortunately. The song I'm talking about today is one of his famous ones and one of his ones that I knew for a long time. And that is Life on Mars. Or rather, I should say Life on Mars, because there is a question mark in the song title. I'm tempted now to do the whole episode with me saying Life on Mars whenever I say the song's title, but I don't know how long I would be able to fucking keep that up. So Life on Mars, yeah, it's one of his most famous songs. It's regarded as one of the best songs ever written and recorded. It's just generally an iconic song. I was going to go with Oh You Pretty Things or Changes, but I ended up going with Life on Mars because I just thought I had more to say of it in kind of a general way right away, and it was a good one to start with, what with being such an iconic song for Bowie, you know. I imagine you probably already know it, person listening to this, but you might not. But even if you do, it's always good to listen to it again. So we're going to listen to it again now, and then we'll come back and talk about it in a few minutes. Well, there you have it. Life on Mars by David Bowie. This is another song that I didn't know the inspiration for until I looked it up for this show. I was a bit worried. I mean, like I said, I decided to go with this song because it's so iconic, but I didn't know if I had much to say about it except for referencing the TV show. Then I looked up the actual inspiration for it, and it turns out it's quite interesting because many songs back in the day were based on songs in other languages. So some American songwriter or English songwriter would take a French or an Italian song or whatever and write English lyrics for it that were about something completely else, but they just used the tune, and that would become really famous. And My Way is an example of this, the famously Frank Sinatra song, I Did It My Way. So that's based on a French song called Comme d'habitude. I assume I'm pronouncing correctly. I'm just going to assume I did. It's based on that French song. And originally, David Bowie was approached to write the English lyrics for it. So he wrote a song called Even a Fool Learns to Love. He himself admitted that it wasn't particularly good. He wasn't particularly proud of it. And it was rejected by the French songwriters, who decided to go with Paul Anka's version, My Way, which was made famous by Frank Sinatra. And because My Way became so famous after that, David Bowie was angry about this missed opportunity. So he wrote Life on Mars as a musical parody of My Way. Which is very interesting to me because I never would have thought of that. I never would have made that connection. But as soon as I was reading it this morning, I was like, oh my God, I can hear it, you know? Not that it's supposed to sound one for one, but it has that similar vibe to it with the kind of quieter verses and the big strings in the chorus, big bombastic, you know? Because My Way goes into the whole, you know, but through it all, when there was doubt, I ate it up and spat it out. You got the strings and the everything's going off, like Starlings by Elbow. And then you've got this song, which has the quieter verses and then the sailors and all the strings kind of cascading in. I completely understand how those two songs are connected. I understood it as soon as I read it this morning, so I find that really interesting. Lyrically, it's kind of a parody of Hollywood and pop culture. It tells the story of this girl who wants to go to the cinema, but her parents don't really want her to, and she's really excited, but then when she goes, the film is a saddening bore because it's so familiar to her, right? The pre-chorus is, but the film is a saddening bore, for she's lived it 10 times or more. She could spit in the eyes of fools as they ask her to focus on, and then into the chorus. You know, she's disappointed at seeing these films that are kind of droll and uninteresting to her. The chorus itself being kind of surreal imagery, sailors fighting in the dance hall. Some people think that might be a reference to David Bowie having a small role in a movie where he played a sailor fighting in a dance hall. Oh man, look at those cavemen go. Another thing I learned today that is taken from a song called Alley-Oop by the Hollywood Argyles, apparently. So the fact that he's quoting a band with Hollywood in their name says something. It's the freakiest show. Take a look at the lawman beating up the wrong guy. Yeah, sounds like America, all right. oh man, wonder if he'll ever know he's in the best-selling show. I'm not entirely sure what that's supposed to mean, because you assume that the chorus is like what she's seeing in the film. Obviously an actor knows that he's in it, but maybe it's referring to like through her eyes seeing all these characters, like does he know he's in this film? And then the last line, is there life on Mars, is a bit of a strange line. Google tells me, or Wikipedia tells me, that the title itself was inspired by the space race, which makes sense to me because, there was all these headlines and news articles and all that at the time that said, is there life on Mars, or something about life on Mars. And including it here is interesting after this whole list of like film characters and situations and things, is there life on Mars? It makes me think of the Galaxy Song by Monty Python, which obviously was after this, but I wouldn't have been long after this, really. But the Galaxy Song is just a song about how immense the universe is and how insignificant humans are. And the last line is, and pray that there's intelligent life somewhere up in space because there's bugger all down here on Earth. That's what this makes me think of. This just ending this with, is there life on Mars? It almost sounds like Bowie is like, this is what life on Earth is like. I wonder if it's any better anywhere else. I have no idea if that was the intention of the lyric at all, but it's just what my mind always makes me think of. It's like, is there life on Mars? Like, oh God, get me away from these Earthlings. The second verse references Mickey Mouse has grown up a cow, referencing Disney becoming a cash cow and like opening Disneyland and all that. That's a wild lyric for 1971. Never mind now. Considering how Disney controls like almost the entire entertainment industry. So never has that line been more fitting. The workers have struck for fame because Lennon's on sale again. You can read that as being about John Lennon or Vladimir Ilyich Lenin. It could mean either and would make sense. Obviously, Vladimir Lenin being the communist, Leninist leader, but also John Lennon having working class hero and all of these things. It makes sense in that regard as well. The mice and their million hordes from Ibiza to the Norfolk Broads, just about like, people going on these big holidays. And it calls them mice, which makes you think small and kind of fragile, but to my mind it almost seems like if you're writing the song now you'd say sheep, because he kind of seems to be implying, like with referencing Disney and John Lennon and going to Ibiza and the Norfolk Broads, it's like, people's life being influenced by the media and entertainment industry and not thinking for themselves. Rule Britannia is out of bounds to my mother, my dog and clowns. First of all, it's a great rhyme, but it's kind of referencing how Rule Britannia is just it only makes sense for royals. Now, what's interesting about the second pre-chorus is the film is a saddening bore because I wrote it 10 times or more. It's about to be writ again as I ask you to focus on sailors fighting in the dance hall and all that. He's like making the song part of this. He's like, I'm just doing the same thing that everyone else is. I'm taking part in the rat race. But I ask you to focus on sailor. It's like the bit in Heya where Andre 3000 says, y'all don't want to hear me, you just want to dance. It's like, yeah, David, that's what's happening here. We're going to focus on the sailors fighting in the dance hall because that's the weird lyric. And it ends with, you can still hear the piano and you hear like a phone ringing and muttering. It's a lyrically kind of odd song, but it brings up some interesting imagery in its kind of message. I also want to talk briefly, I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't talk about the TV show Life on Mars, which is part of what got me really into the song. I mean, like I said, I've always liked David Bowie. His music, not him as a person. There's a whole thing's there going on. But I would have first discovered David Bowie's music through Labyrinth because it's my sister's, like one of her favorite films, and she watched it a lot when I was younger, so obviously I saw it a lot. And I would have been more familiar with his music through that film. But the TV show Life on Mars is about a cop in Manchester who is hit by a van and wakes up in 1973. And so it's mostly a police procedural, but it's also like a supernatural drama with the time travel aspect, because it never feels like science fiction time travel. It always feels supernatural. It's a very strange show, very surreal, and really good. But of course, the song that's playing on the radio of his car when he gets hit by the van is Life on Mars, and it's referenced a lot. Other David Bowie songs are referenced a lot throughout the series. There was a sequel series afterwards called Ashes to Ashes, which is another David Bowie song. They were planning to do a third series called Lazarus, again another David Bowie song, but that was cancelled, unfortunately. I just wanted to mention that show because it's really fucking good and you should watch it. There's only 16 episodes. I love British shows. They're so short. It's great. But yeah, it's interesting, that one as well. incorporating that song. It's just an interesting song to choose. I think it just makes sense for the time period that he time travels to. That's probably where the idea started from, to use that song. But it does feature in the chorus, "Take a look at the lawman beating up the wrong guy." And that is a prominent thing to be explored in that show, let me tell you what. I was about to say I don't have much else to say, but I do want to mention that in the music video, it was just before Ziggy Stardust, and Bowie's wearing like pale white face makeup and like blue eyeshadow, and he's got his shocking red hair. It's a very distinct look. It's just an interesting... The video is just him singing, but it's iconic in its own right just because of how stark it is, you know? Anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about that. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to subscribe, leave comments, criticisms, compliments, suggestions. Thank you for listening. I hope to see you tomorrow.
Break it down.
Oh man, wonder if he'll ever know he's in the best-selling show. I probably have to record that again.